What's up, guys? So back with you for Friday, April 18th. The slump continues. I don't even know what I should do at this point other than potentially end it all. We're reaching some real suicidal times here, man, with March being the worst month ever that I've had. And now April was hot for a while. Hey, what can you do? It's these Duluth long-tailed tees, man. I don't iron this shit. I don't have time for that. I'm just going wrinkled, like my skin is eventually going to be because I'm fucking old now. Um, or when I'm a corpse buried in the ground, then it'll really be wrinkled. And I'm wearing my funeral cap here with the dead Bruins team. They're not dead. It was 1-3. Started out not great with the under not hitting, and I thought it was a good spot. The market looked like it agreed with it, the under in that Phillies game, Phillies Giants, and the game was basically out of reach right away because the Phillies, I think, scored 5 or 6 runs in the bottom of the first inning, and then the game proceeded to have no runs scored again until like the 6th or 7th inning. So there was a run of like 5 or 6 innings in a row in that game with no runs scored. Has the looks of an under, except for the fact that there was a 5 spot in the first inning that completely ruined it. So isn't that just great? Then we had, I added that Kansas City underdog play. That didn't get there. And I told you, if Kansas City or St. Louis got there as the dog, it would have been an okay day. I think it actually maybe would have been a slight winning day as long as one of those plays won. Neither of them did. And of course, one of those teams, what was it? St. Louis was up against, somebody was up against, uh, Griffin Canning, that's who it was. Yeah, St. Louis lost to Griffin Canning. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe his pitching coaches have found something with him. As he had a good performance yesterday, which is shocking to me, really, because he's a terrible pitcher. But maybe that is changing with the Mets pitching coaches. I have no clue. We will see. Maybe we have to stop automatically fading Griffin Canning. And then we got, what was the other loss that I took? Or no, I had a win yesterday at Baltimore, which was actually probably the least strong of those plays, and they won outright. So if you took Baltimore first 5 or full game, didn't even matter. They won both. Sugano had a decent start for them in that game. We move on. Baseball traditionally has been one of my best sports. NBA is the best. I tend to do really well in the NBA playoffs. Baseball usually does really well. May historically is one of my best months. So usually it starts getting really good right about now. So let's get into it. Let's do it. I have only baseball plays here today. I'm skipping the play-in NBA games, which I will talk about still. Baseball, I got 4 plays. I feel pretty good about them, man. I'm going to talk about baseball in a second. We'll talk about these play-in games here. So these are the last teams trying to get in, playing for the 8th seed here in the NBA playoffs. So in the East, Heat and Hawks, actually in both situations, the road team is actually the 10 seed here, and the home team is the 8 seed, I believe, as far as what they were going into the play-in round here. I will say, since the NBA playoff expansion to these stupid play-ins, the 10 seed has never won both games and made the playoffs. And you can kind of see why that is, because the 10 seed has to play 2 straight road games in 3 days, and a lot of times there's a lot of travel involved, which we'll talk about with the Dallas Mavs here. So it's very, very difficult for the 10 seed to actually get that done and win both games on the road. Although I will say, I think if any team is going to do it, I think the Heat probably have the best chance to do it. They have flipped from a 1-point dog to a pick'em price, moving towards being a favorite, although we do see the Heat being public with 74% of tickets, only 62% of the cash. I think the public, like, so recency bias. I think they just like what they just saw out of the Heat. The Heat crushed the Bulls. I was on the Heat in that game. So that was a winner for me with the Heat. Easy win the other night on the Heat. The Hawks, in a way, are actually a similar team to the Bulls in that they play fast-paced. They don't play defense very well. So the Heat did just see the style, and their travel isn't really that extreme, having to go from Chicago to Atlanta. That's not a horrible travel spot, really. It is still 2 straight road games in 3 days, but I do think the Heat have a number of advantages in that they are the better defense here, even though they do seem to be kind of playing into these fast-paced games against these fast-paced teams, though they still won with a good defensive effort against Chicago in that game. They may do it again here. The Hawks definitely are a poor defensive team. And the other advantage the Heat have is that they have the way better coach, man. I mean, they got Eric Spoelstra. I don't even know who the Hawks coach is. So, I mean, I've mentioned this before. I'm like, who the hell is this coach even? I have no idea. So the Heat do have that advantage there as well with Spoelstra. I think that gives them an advantage. Maybe the disadvantage is that the Heat won in such a blowout that they might be feeling a little high on themselves, though this is the play-in game, man. Both these teams are kind of used to being in this play-in scenario here and being one of those lower seeds in the NBA playoffs, so they do both have experience as far as that is concerned. And the total has gone up in this game from 218 juice to the under to 219 juice to the under, which kind of indicates that some money coming into the over, 94% of the cash, only 73% of tickets, and the Hawks side probably would be correlated to the under, although we saw the money going, or the line move at least went the other way on the Heat. Like, if you like the Heat in this game, you probably like the under, because it probably means they're going to slow the game down enough and play good enough defense that they win the game. Hawks are that, like, speed-up offensive team, and usually you see that offensive team being a public team, but I think the public is just off the Hawks because the Hawks looked so bad against Orlando, getting annihilated by Orlando, whereas the Heat looked quite good against the Bulls, so I think some recency bias there. All that being said, probably the slight lean to the Heat just because of the coaching advantage and the defensive advantage. I will stay away. Mavs, Grizzlies. Grizzlies are up from 5 to 6 with juice. 53% of tickets, 67% of cash coming into the Mavs. So the cash percentage is on the Mavs, although the initial line move was up on the Grizzlies, and I think it did hit 7 briefly, and then it looks like maybe there was a little bit of take back on Dallas at 7. Maybe professional bettors kind of disagreeing on this number and thinking that the 7 was maybe just too high a number, although I think probably the initial money coming into the Grizzlies made sense here. The total is down from 223 to 221 and a half juice to the under with 77% of tickets, only 58% of the cash. So it looks like the money is actually coming into the under. And again, you do kind of want to look for defensive intensity in an elimination game like this. Although then again, the defenses could be a little bit tired because both teams did just play 2 days ago. And Dallas, like I was just saying with these 10 seeds, they're kind of up against it. And Dallas just had to play on the West Coast in Sacramento, pulled off that upset, and now they're having to travel to Memphis. So it's a pretty bad travel spot for Dallas here. So that would give me some hesitation. For that reason, I would probably slightly lean to the Grizzlies just because the travel spot is so bad for the Mavs, and they just pulled off that nice upset win, and they probably looked a little bit better than they were in that game, although I told you I liked the Mavs to cover in that game. I thought that they were going to win outright. I mentioned it on my show. I mentioned it with my NBA playoff preview with Clint from Liberty Lockdown on this channel as well, and we both liked the Mavs in that game. They did win. The Mavs do have a little bit of an experience edge here. I mean, I think they have the better coach as well with Kidd, as the Grizzlies actually fired their coach not that long ago, so I don't even know who their interim coach is. So there is a coaching edge on the Mavs side. The Mavs had a huge advantage, I think, in the paint against Sacramento with a big size advantage, which they will not have against the Grizzlies. The Grizzlies also have size. I mean, they got Zach Edey, I believe, so the Grizzlies can kind of counter the Mavs' size, although the Mavs do play a physical defensive style, so I do think the Mavs side is probably correlated to the under in this game because that's kind of the way they want to play. Memphis kind of probably wants to go a little bit more up-tempo and score a bit more than the Mavs do. So that would be the case there. But again, the travel spot bad for the Mavs, and then the Mavs having to shift time zones. That game, as I was alluding to, was a little bit misleading against Sacramento just in that it looked like the Mavs dominated the whole game because they were winning the whole game, but I believe the Mavs had just a ridiculous second quarter where that pretty much put them in the driver's seat for the whole game. And yeah, maybe because of that, they took their foot off the gas. So maybe there's not that much to take away from the second half there where the Grizzlies, or not the Kings were having to play catch up the whole time. Not the Grizzlies. We'll see what happens tonight. But the Kings were having to play catch up the whole game because of a horrific second quarter where I believe Sacramento had more turnovers than points scored in the second quarter, which is completely ridiculous. I don't know if you ever see something like that. I mean, I'm sure it's probably happened before, but that's ridiculous, especially for a home team. But the Mavs were also playing really good defense, and Sacramento was just having coaching lapses. I think the coaching was a big factor there. And maybe it will be again here. Maybe you will see the Grizzlies turning the ball over in this game. So I'm not going to play this game. again, I think in both of these games, there are different ways to look at it. The Heat look like they're still moving up as a favorite there. So I do lean to the Heat and slightly lean to the Grizzlies in this one. But I think the Mavs travel spot is just awful. But I do think the Heat and the Mavs both are the better defensive team and have a coaching edge in these games. Let's go over to Major League Baseball. A lot of times I just run down my thoughts on every baseball game because I have thoughts on all of them. The Chicago Cubs, they're returning home from a road trip, I believe, where they were out on the Pacific Coast. So automatically, bad spot for the Cubs, and they're having to play an afternoon game here. Although the afternoon game might actually be a disadvantage to Arizona because they actually played yesterday. So this is the reason why I'm staying away from this game. Arizona had to use some of their bullpen yesterday against Miami. They're traveling from Miami to Chicago. Chicago, still, they were out on the Pacific Coast. And I say, when a team returns home from a road trip, they tend to not be that focused on the road trip return because they have to get back to family life. They have stuff to do at home, although Arizona's a pretty good team, so the Cubs may still be focused on this game against Arizona. So then you want to look to kind of the starting pitching matchup a bit here. Arizona's got the bullpen disadvantage, I think, in this game, even though their bullpen's not that bad, just because they used some of their bullpen yesterday and Chicago was off. So Chicago has the more rested bullpen. Then we want to look at the starting pitching matchup, and it looks like a total mismatch here where it's like, oh, Chicago's returning home from a road trip, and Colin Ray is on the mound for them. That doesn't look good, right, with Colin Ray on the mound there for them. But he does have a 1 ERA so far this year somehow, even though he's a guy who's in his 30s. He's not a very good pitcher. However, against Arizona, he actually does pretty well career-wise, more than pretty well, with a 189 batting average against, 478 OPS. So he actually does really well against Arizona. Corbin Burnes, of course, is the ace, although he's in a new environment here in Arizona, and he has not done well so far, with a 5.28 ERA to start his first season with Arizona. 1.57 whip. He's definitely walking way too many guys with 9 walks and 15 and a third innings pitched. I think he will turn it around. I mean, he is too good of a pitcher to continue pitching this poorly, but it may not happen in this game because the Cubs, in 109 at-bats, even though he has a nice strikeout walk ratio against him, the Cubs hit 303 against him lifetime with an 861 OPS. Swanson especially absolutely drills Burnes, 12 for 20 with 2 home runs against him. So, again, if you want to look to the player prop market, I always will point out that specific matchup. Hits plus runs plus RBIs, man. Swanson does really well against Corbin Burnes historically. I'm not going to play the game, though. I will stay away from that game. And actually, I got to hold on. I got to delete all of my plays here for today. Excuse me. Sorry, I still have all my banners in from yesterday. We got, I believe one of my plays is the next game up. So let me try to add this on the fly here. I apologize for forgetting to add my banners here. The next game up is Cleveland at Pittsburgh, and I do have a play in this game, and it is a money line play, and it is on Cleveland minus 130. So that's where I'm going here on this one. As I'm showing you my bets here. Sorry, I'm tipping my hand there. That's just on my Action Network where I track them, though. All right, Cleveland is at Pittsburgh. Now, both teams played yesterday, but Pittsburgh, if you look at what they did, they had a 1-0 win over Washington. And Pittsburgh, they didn't use that much of their bullpen, but they did use their best couple of relievers here, basically, in Baruki and Santana, or Baraki, however you pronounce it. So they did use some of the back end of their bullpen at the very least. Cleveland lost to Baltimore, and Cleveland didn't really use that much of their pen. So I do think the bullpen's kind of a wash. So they did use Gaddis. He is one of their better relievers. Herron actually isn't that bad either. Eunice, I think, is kind of like a long relief man there. So I don't know. I think it's kind of a wash. Cleveland used a little bit more of their bullpen than Pittsburgh did. Pittsburgh did use their closer yesterday, and I think Cleveland does still have the better bullpen out of the two. So it's a bit of a wash there, I guess. Maybe still even a slight advantage to Cleveland on the bullpen situation. But we look at the starting pitching matchup here, and I think we're gonna have to go to Cleveland here, man. And Cleveland, they just lost a series at Baltimore, so not great. I think it'll be good for them to just get out of there. They continue the road trip, forget about what just happened in Baltimore. I mean, they just lost 9-1 and 6-2. Just horrific performances from Cleveland in those last 2 games. But at least they did face a pretty good unknown pitcher to them yesterday. I was on Baltimore yesterday because Sugano, I thought, was going to give them some difficulty because they were totally unfamiliar with them. Now they get to face Pittsburgh, who Pittsburgh is an easier opponent to beat, man. I mean, their offense is not as good. Pittsburgh's pitching really isn't that good either, unless you're facing Paul Skeens. And, of course, he is not on the mound today. Pittsburgh's coming off a nice 3-1 series win over Washington, staying at home, maybe feeling a little bit high, riding a high off of that. And they did not score well in this series except for the 10-3 win. The rest of the games, they scored 0. 6 was good, but then 1 in the last game. So Pittsburgh, not exactly a scoring machine. And then we look at the starting pitching matchup, and this is what's going to put it over the edge for me. Luis Ortiz, I know his numbers look terrible, so the public is not going to want anything to do with Ortiz. 6.06 ERA to start the season, 1.41 whip. This is his first season with Cleveland. And yeah, he's been bad, but his first start was just really bad at San Diego. I know it's a pitcher-friendly park, but San Diego just put a ton of men on base. Their offense is good, and his trajectory is pretty good from then on, as he went 6 innings in the next start and only allowed 3 runs to Anaheim. That's good. Didn't walk anybody. And then he had a 10-2 strikeout walk ratio and a 1-hit, 1-run performance against Kansas City in his first home game. So that's good as well. I know he's pitching a lot on the road here, and he will be today. But again, Pirates, their offense isn't that great. And here's the thing. So his trajectory looks good. And guess what? Luis Ortiz, his only other team throughout his career so far has been the Pittsburgh Pirates, and this is going to be his first game pitching against the team that let him go. And I mentioned this on my show, that if you have a starting pitcher who the first time he's facing a team that let him go, that starting pitcher is going to be motivated, even though, that team will know how to hit him. They'll know his tendencies. I do mention that as well. But when it's the first time that pitcher is facing him, I think the pitcher does want to do well against them, and I think that might be the case here. His 15-6 strikeout walk ratio this year is still not that bad. I think his numbers will start getting a little bit better. Last year, he had about a half season as a starter, half as a relief man. Had a 1.11 whip last year, so that was pretty good. I know he was worse as a starter the previous year, but he's still a young guy. He's still figuring things out. So I think this is all good for Ortiz. I think the thing that tips the scales is that he's facing his former team, man. I think he's going to be pumped for it. And those hitters on Pittsburgh have 12 at-bats against him lifetime, and he's held him to a 167 average, only 2 hits, no extra base hits, 1 walk, 2 strikeouts, and it's a low 397 OPS. I know it's a very small sample size, but it also means that only 4 of their hitters have ever seen him before. So that's interesting as well. So Ortiz, I believe, has the edge here because he's up against Carmen Mlodzinski. I'm not sure why this guy's in Pittsburgh's rotation right now, to be honest. I don't know if he's really a prospect for them or not. He was coming out of the bullpen for the most part last year, and he did well as a relief man. He's not doing well as a starter so far. He's only got 5 innings once in 3 starts. Granted, the other 2 starts were on the road, and one of them was at Great American, which is not a good environment for pitchers, but still, he hasn't been great. He's allowed 17 hits, 9 runs, 6 walks in 13 innings. 14 strikeouts is good, but he's not doing well as a starter so far, man. And Tampa and Cincinnati, I mean, I know those are both on the road, but those are pretty weak offenses. St. Louis actually has a good offense, and somehow that was his best start. And it was the one at home. I understand that, but 6.23 ERA so far this year, 1.77 whip. And against Cleveland lifetime, this is always a relief man from Mlodzinski. They have 8 at-bats against him spread across the lineup. They've hit 375 off him and a 1,194 OPS. So I trust Ortiz a lot more than Mlodzinski. He is the more proven starter at this point, in my opinion. So we're going to go with Cleveland, and you do have to lay a bit of a price. So it is kind of built into the number here. The line has moved up, so some money has driven that number up from minus 110 to minus 132. And now there's some, it looks like some of the money is coming back in on the Pittsburgh side. As Cleveland is public, 75% of tickets. I understand we're playing on a public road favorite here, which a lot of times you do not want to do. But I think we do have the edge in this one, 63% of the cash on them. So this line may come back down a little bit. So, I mean, if you want to wait, obviously try to find the best number on the Cleveland Indians in that one. But I think that's the right side to be looking at in that one. Kansas City and Detroit, they already started their series, and now they have Cole Reagans against Jackson Jobe, or Joby, and I think I have a play in this one too. Let me see. Do I? Yes. So I'm going to be on the under in this game. So I was thinking I was going to have a lot of plays here, although I don't. I only have 5. But you can find under 7 at like a plus money price or under 7.5. Pay a little bit of juice, minus 118. I'm fine with either. So the 7 is the key number in baseball. So you do want to try to get the best number that you can. I would probably pay up to about minus 120 to get it under 7.5 because you do get that hook. In baseball, of course, 7 the key number because that's how you break the 3-3 tie. I like this one. I mean, neither team used a lot of their bullpen in the game yesterday. And this is Cole Reagans against Jackson Jobe. And Cole Reagans, I mean, he's actually kind of one of the best pitchers in baseball at this point, man. I mean, look at what he's done. After he had a bit of a shaky start against Cleveland to start the year, and he's faced Cleveland twice, he bounced back with an epic performance the next time against Cleveland. A 7 2/3 inning shutout. And look at his numbers. In the month of April, he's been insane with a 31-2 strikeout walk ratio and 18 2/3, 13 hits allowed. He is a strikeout master right now. And overall this season, 34-4 strikeout walk ratio, 18 hits allowed, and 23 2/3. I think Reagans doesn't really get the accolades. He is Kansas City's ace, and I mean, he is an excellent pitcher. He's one of the best pitchers in baseball, man. Just extremely good. 2.28 ERA, 0.93 whip this season so far. Not misleading at all. He's just dominating. I mean, last year he had a really good strikeout number as well. It's not going to continue to be this good, but still, he is fully in command right now based on what he's been doing. Last year and the year before that as well had really good numbers. Last year was his first full season as a starting pitcher. But he is turning into quite something, and his numbers against Detroit are insane as well. 49 at-bats. They only have 4 hits off him. They do have 1 home run from Malloy, which is the only extra base hit. He does have 10 walks, which is a little bit concerning. 16-10 strikeout walk ratio, but the way he's been pitching this year, I'm not that concerned by it. And that all amounts to an 0.82 batting average against Detroit and a 380 OPS. 49 at-bats worth, so that's a decent sample size, and Reagans, aside from those walk numbers, has completely dominated Detroit's hitters. And then you got Jackson Jobe on the other side, or Joby. He's a young pitcher, and he's starting to pitch well, man. His season so far has been good, except for a 9.8 strikeout walk ratio is not good. Way too many walks, but he's also only allowed 9 hits in 15 innings, so he hasn't been very hittable. And I know one of those starts was against Seattle on the road, and somehow he gave up both home runs that he's allowed so far in that game and walked 4 guys in a pitcher-friendly environment. But again, maybe it was nerves because that was his first start as a major league pitcher. And then since then, he's on the right trajectory, man, as he pitched well against the White Sox. I know it's a weak lineup. He did okay against them. And then he got better with a 6-inning, 2-hit shutout performance. Only 2 strikeouts, so he's not really a strikeout guy so far at least, but that was still a good performance against Minnesota. And what we're still looking at is Jobe has never been seen before by Kansas City's lineup. So I think for a young pitcher like this who's starting to get things together and is a decent prospect, which is one of the reasons why he's in Detroit's starting rotation here, other than Detroit going with the bullpen approach in some of these games here, I think he does have the edge in this one. I think both starting pitchers have an edge here. So we're going to go with the under in this one. And I say, as I didn't finish my thought there, when a young pitcher like that who is a pretty decently touted prospect who has good stuff, when he's facing a lineup that hasn't seen him before, that's usually an advantage to the pitcher early on. So I like the under in this game. I mean, it wouldn't be a day with me without having an MLB under, right? That total's gone up from 7 juice to the over to 7.5 juice to the under. Only a very slight move up, though. Hardly any move at all, really. 92% of tickets, 100% of the cash on the under so far. But again, I don't think a lot of the public bettors are coming in and look at this game going, oh, I want to play the under in this game. I think that that is not the way that they're looking. So most of what we see in the percentages here is probably professional betting on that. And Kansas City has been driven up on the money lines. The money is coming in on their side too, and why not? I mean, it is Cole Reagans, dominant pitcher. Miami and Philadelphia both played yesterday. Miami having to travel from home off of that losing game against Arizona. They're traveling to Philadelphia. Philadelphia off a pretty tough series against the Giants team. It started off the season nicely. Both teams played yesterday, so both teams kind of used their bullpen yesterday. We do have a good starting pitching matchup in this game with Alcantara against Zach Wheeler. Alcantara is Miami's best starting pitcher, and Wheeler is still Philadelphia's best starting pitcher, too. So you have basically a matchup of aces here. So you might be looking, oh, I want to play an under in this one. And the line has actually gone up from 7 juice to the over 7.5, but 62% of tickets on the over. Public is going to come in and probably mostly play overs in Phillies games for the most part. And then they got 66% of the cash coming into the under. And the public, I think, still just overlooks Alcantara completely. And I think they're just overlooking the fact that Wheeler is a good pitcher as well. So Alcantara, I mean, he's probably one of the most undervalued starting pitchers right now because he's been injured. So he hasn't pitched for a couple of seasons. And he is still, he's the ace of Miami's staff and quite a good pitcher. The problem is his numbers against Philadelphia are actually not good in his career. So let me see here. That was Arizona, excuse me. You gotta when these new series start, you gotta change the opponent here. And 254 at bats were. So Philadelphia has a huge amount of experience against them. That is crazy. 299 average and 786 OPS. So Philadelphia's hit him pretty well, and they have a ton of playing time against him. And Zach Wheeler, on the other hand, his numbers actually aren't great against Miami. And both these pitchers, by the way, have a kind of a bad-looking ERA. Both their ERAs are in the 4s, but their whip is pretty low in both cases. So in both cases, their whip is indicating that their ERA should be lower. So both starting pitchers may be a bit undervalued for that reason, but neither starting pitcher has great numbers against the opponent. Wheeler in 39 at-bats. Miami hits 282 off him. 650 OPS is fairly low, though, but a decent average against him. So I think Wheeler does have a little bit of an edge there for that reason. Philadelphia is just a huge favorite, though. I think the cash percentage is coming in on the under, which makes sense because it is two good starting pitchers here. Miami, I mean, their offense still isn't good. They could struggle to score in this game still, but the matchup doesn't look really that great for either team. So, I mean, there's not a lot of leeway with a fairly low total like that. So I wouldn't be shocked if that game actually does wind up going over the total. Even with that decent starting pitching matchup. So I'll stay away. Cincinnati and Baltimore, both teams played yesterday, but Cincinnati used way more of their relief pitching as they had a ridiculous 10-inning game against Seattle. Now they're leaving home and going to Baltimore. Baltimore's staying at home, so Cincinnati has travel, and they basically torched their entire bullpen yesterday. They used most of their bullpen yesterday, so that's not good. So Cincinnati is absolutely at a disadvantage here. They have the more used up bullpen here, and they have travel. Really, my one concern here, I would lean Baltimore. I think it's a bad spot for Cincinnati. My one concern is that you're playing on Cade Povich, and even though I think he's a young pitcher with decent stuff, we really have not seen that out of him yet. Andrew Abbott has been okay to start his career, and he's had one start so far this year coming off of injury. Pitched pretty well, though it was against a weak-hitting Pirates lineup, but still, that gives him that game under his belt. That's not bad. So basically the thing that's keeping me off of this right now is that I think the starting pitching matchup isn't that bad. For the Reds, however, Abbott doesn't do well in 38 at-bats against Baltimore. They've hit 316 off him with an 876 OPS. So Abbott has not done well against Baltimore specifically. On the other hand, Cade Povich, though, I know his whip is terrible, 1.8, so that indicates that his ERA should be worse than it is at 3.6. He's allowing way too many base runners. Most of it was this 12-hit game where he somehow only allowed one earned run against Kansas City. I don't know how that was, allowing 12 hits. He's allowed way too many hits. His strikeout walk ratio is good, 14-3. So that does indicate that he does have some decent stuff, but 24 hits allowed is miserable. He's been way too hittable. So he's got to get that in check, man, because his walk numbers, strikeout numbers are pretty good. And against Cincinnati, I don't think they've ever seen him before. Two of their hitters have seen him before. And in 6 at-bats, they've hit 333 off him with a 1,000 OPS. So kind of the issue I have here is that you're laying a decent price with Baltimore here. It's a bit expensive. And Povich, I don't know if we can still trust him, man, even though I think he does have a slight edge in the starting pitching matchup because we know Abbott has been seen more by Baltimore. Baltimore hits pretty well off him. Povich hasn't been seen before by most of Cincinnati's hitters, so he may have an advantage because he's a young guy, still has good stuff. So Cincinnati's hitters may struggle a little bit against him, and still the situation is awful for Cincinnati, and their bullpen is at a pretty big disadvantage in this game, so I do lean to Baltimore in this game. They're up for minus 140 to minus 160, but they are public with 75% of tickets, only 67% of the cash. But I do still lean to Baltimore in that game. I'm kind of tempted to actually play it. Should I add this one? I don't know, man. I think I'll stay away. I won't add things. It's been bad for me adding games late here, but if I was going to play it, I would probably go to DraftKings or whichever sportsbook will give you a -1 run line on that and get the price down to close to like a -110 price, where you're basically playing a spread bet there. And if they win by 1, you'll push the bet. That's the way I would look in that game. I would play Baltimore run line -1 in that one. Yankees in Tampa Bay. Carlos Rodon is pitching, and I think you got a situation where I still think Rodon is being shit on too much, even though I hate the Yankees. But Rodon, 1.13 whip indicates his 5.48 ERA is a little bit misleading. I know he's walked way too many guys, but he hasn't been very hittable. In 23 innings pitched, 12 walks is way too many, but he's been striking guys out, 28 strikeouts, 14 hits allowed, so he's not been hittable. And against Tampa, these teams played yesterday as well, by the way. In 41 at-bats, they've only hit 195 off him with a 678 OPS. So Rodon has been good against Tampa. And Rasmussen is off to a good start for Tampa somehow with a .6 ERA, .73 whip. And his numbers in his recent seasons have also been pretty good. So maybe Rasmussen actually isn't that bad. 15-2 strikeout walk ratio in 15 innings so far this year. He hasn't pitched that many innings, but he's pitching well, and he's allowed 1 run across 3 starts and only allowed 9 hits, which is crazy. He's been pitching quite well, and his numbers are good against the Yankees, too. In 20 at-bats, Aaron Judge is the only Yankee player with a hit off of him. 1 for 7, and all of the other at-bats are strikeouts. 6 Ks, which is insane. So in those 20 at-bats, Rasmussen has 12 strikeouts against him and is held to an .050 average and 186 OPS. So I think we're looking at an under in that game. I mean, I'm not going to play it because I just worry about the fact that Tampa Bay playing at Steinbrenner Stadium there. I mean, could be a little bit more of an over type of park, although it hasn't really been the case so far this season. With this starting pitching matchup, yeah, I would play the under in this game or not play the game. The total's down from 9, juice the under, 8.5, juice the under. So money has come in on the under here, agreeing with me. 55% of tickets on the under, 84% of cash on the under. So the market does agree with me. Under is the way to look there. It is going to be a hot day, though, so that will help the hitting a little bit. It looks like there's little wind, though. So with the wind not blowing out, that might mean fewer home runs in this game at the very least. But Rodon, we know he's susceptible to the long ball, as I believe he is at least. Wait, do we know that? Let me see. Hang on. Yeah, he's allowed 5 so far this season. He's allowed at least 1 in every start. So little bit of danger there playing that one. And then if we look at yesterday's game here, I'm kind of tempted to still play the under on this one, to be honest. But look at yesterday's game. There was a bit of bullpen usage. I mean, Will Warren didn't last long in that game at all. I think he was on a short leash, basically. I don't know if he got hurt, maybe. I don't know. But the bullpen situation's a little bit dicey as well if you like the under in this one, although that is still the way that I would lean in that game. As long as the starting pitching will get you deeper into that game. Next up, I do have another play, I believe, which is on Toronto, as you've already seen on that page there. You can get them at even money right now. You can get them at a little bit of a home underdog price, which I like, and it's because they are facing a good pitcher in Brian Wu. I usually like to be on Wu, but not in this case, man. I will not woo in this game. Seattle played that ridiculous extra inning game yesterday, man, and both teams burned out their entire bullpen yesterday, man. So Seattle torched their entire bullpen yesterday. Oh, and by the way, Toronto wasn't even playing yesterday. So Toronto has a huge bullpen edge, I think, in this game, and the fact that they didn't use any of their relievers yesterday. They'll have their full bullpen at their disposal, whereas Seattle basically is not going to have any of their relievers available here. So I think that's going to be a huge disadvantage to Seattle. When you have a starting pitching matchup that looks like it's fairly even with Wu against Francis, 2 really good starting pitchers, it might come down to a close game coming down to the pens, and you do not want to be on a completely burned out pen like Seattle's is after last night. Seattle also maybe some tired bats as well after having to play that extra inning game yesterday where Toronto was off. So I think this lines up way better for Toronto here. And they're not even traveling. They're staying at home. So another advantage to Toronto here. Not playing yesterday. Huge advantage to Toronto, in my opinion, here. And Seattle traveling from Cincinnati into Toronto here. Brian Wu, yes, he's a good pitcher for sure. 2.84 ERA to start the season. 0.95 whip. 18-4 strikeout walk ratio. Only 14 hits allowed. That's all good. However, His starts have been way better at home than on the road so far this year. Allowed 1 run in each of his home starts in a pitcher-friendly park there in Seattle, and his 1 road start at the Giants was good with a 6-1 strikeout walk ratio, only 5 hits allowed, but he did allow 4 earned runs. And I believe if you look at his splits, we can look at I think you can only look at him year over year, unfortunately. But he's only been in the league for 2 seasons. So if you look at his home and away, I mean, pretty significant splits there. He was dominant at home last year. The 2.47 ERA, 186 opponent batting average, and on the road, 3.29 ERA, 2.34 opponent batting average. That was still quite good, but he was basically unhittable at home last year. So he was at least pretty touchable on the road last year. That was basically his first completely full season. I think probably we can look at the year before that too, but it was probably similar. Let me see. Last year he did actually have a decent, or the previous year he had a decent sample size. Let me see. Same actually at home. It was even more crazy. 3.31 ERA at home, 4.82 on the road. That season, his walk numbers were way worse on the road that year. Opponent batting average was actually about the same, 229 at home, actually better on the road, 225. But I think, needless to say, all that being said, he's obviously worse on the road than he is at home. We got Bowden Francis going for Toronto, 3.71 ERA, 1.06 whip. I've been, praising Bowden Francis because he was so good at the end of last season. He's been walking too many guys and giving up too many home runs this season so far, but he did have 2 games on the road. That one of those games was at Baltimore, not really that easy to pitch there, and Baltimore very familiar with him. 15-7 strikeout walk ratio, 17 innings, 11 hits allowed. He has not allowed many hits, so that's good this season. The 7 walks, he's got to get that under control. His whip is still quite low, and last year, I mean, he was one of the best pitchers in baseball down the stretch at the end of last season, and nobody really noticed. Francis is a good pitcher, man, and against Seattle, he basically has not been seen by Seattle. So you got a quite good pitcher in Bowden Francis, and he has good stuff, and Seattle's weak lineup has basically never seen him before. 2 other guys have seen him before. And yeah, I know he hasn't gotten any of them out in 2 at-bats. They have a hit and a walks. They have a 2,000 OPS off them and 1,000 batting average, but it's only in 2 at-bats, man. So I don't think there's anything you really take away from that. Seattle's lineup is not a very potent offense, and Francis, again, being unseen to Seattle's offense, I think he does have a bit of an edge there, a slight edge in the starting pitching matchup because Wu is not as good on the road. Francis, being a good pitcher, hasn't been seen before by Seattle's offense. Again, that's an advantage to the pitcher early on because the hitters don't know what he's going to throw at them. They haven't seen it in a live game environment, although Wu is fairly unknown to the Blue Jays as well. There's only 4 of their hitters have seen him before, and they're only 1 for 10 off him, although it was a home run from Vlad Guerrero Jr. It's only a 100 average and 500 OPS, so he's done well in a very small sample size against Toronto, but I still give the edge to Francis. Slight edge in the starting pitching matchup for Francis, but the bullpen situation, the rest situation, the overall situation, very bad for Seattle. Toronto's just sitting at a minus 105 favorite right now. You can probably still find them at around even money. 63% of the cash on Toronto, but the public wants Seattle at 58% of the tickets. Don't exactly know why that is. Maybe it's just because of the records so far this season. Seattle's 10-9, although Blue Jays are 11-8, and they're 7-3 at home, and Mariners are 2-4 on the road. So Mariners, it's well known that their starting pitching staff as a whole is not as good on the road as it is at home. I mean, at home, it's very pitcher-friendly. So the Mariners don't have a good record on the road either. Toronto, very good at home. The public, I don't know why they don't want Toronto, but that is what's going on there. And then, I got to try to get through these fast. Chicago White Sox and Boston. Boston's returning home from a road trip. Didn't go that far, though. They only went to this White Sox team and to Tampa Bay. And Boston might be focused because they lost that series pretty embarrassingly to the White Sox. They probably will want to be focused. Martin Perez is not a good pitcher for the White Sox, and Hunter Dobbins only has 1 major league start so far, so the White Sox are totally unfamiliar with him. He's a prospect for the Red Sox. I don't know if he's that great, but he does throw like mid-90s, has some okay breaking stuff, I guess. So Dobbins probably actually does have the edge in that matchup. And the White Sox, I believe, were off yesterday as well, right? Oh, no, they played yesterday. They played at home against the A's. So the Red Sox actually have the rest edge as well, but they are returning home from a road trip. I won't touch the game, but that's what's going on there. Minnesota, Atlanta. I mean, Bryce Elder is a terrible pitcher, and Chris Paddock has not put it together for Minnesota either, but Elder actually has good numbers against Minnesota, so I'm going to stay away from this one as well. I think neither team played yesterday. And Atlanta is returning home from a road trip, so it's kind of a bad spot for them, although they stayed on the East Coast, but never want to really play a team returning home from a road trip. Dodgers and the Rangers, Yamamoto and DeGrom, looks like you'd want to play an under here. I mean, those are two really good pitchers, but I believe Yamamoto in a small sample size actually hasn't been good against Texas. Yeah, they're 5 for 11 off him, even though only 3 of their hitters have seen him before, and he has 4 strikeouts. It's been really feast or famine with Yamamoto there. And DeGrom, he's been decent so far to start the season, but he's coming back from injury. He's been a little bit questionable. I still think he's going to be good. So even though on the surface it looks like an under game, the total's up from 7.5 to 8, juice to the over. So it's moved to the over, but 56% of tickets on the over and 72% of cash coming in the under. I would probably still look to the under in that game slightly, but I don't want to quite do it just because it's a little bit of a gamble with Yamamoto being a little bit questionable. Ginn against Peralta in A's Milwaukee. It looks like an under as well because Ginn is this young pitcher who is pretty decent. He's a pretty talented pitcher. Freddie Peralta is the best starting pitcher on Milwaukee, which isn't really saying that much. I believe Milwaukee was off yesterday, and the A's had to play, so the A's are the less rested team. Milwaukee is staying at home, so Milwaukee does have a rest and travel edge here as the A's are having to travel. Only from Chicago, though, so it's a very short travel. So really not a whole lot of travel there, but they did still play yesterday. And you got Ginn, I think, is pretty much unknown to Milwaukee, so you might actually have a little bit of an edge because I think Peralta actually is not good against the A's lineup. Let me see. Only 9 at-bats worth, though, but they have 2 home runs off him, 333 average, 1,333 OPS. So I don't know if I would trust Peralta enough to play an under there. It looks like kind of an under game. Total down from 8 to 8 juice to the under. 70% of tickets on the over and only 69% of cash on the over. So the under does look a bit right there. And then my final play is, I forget what price I got on it, but I am going to play, I still have the Toronto one up. Houston on the money line. I think you can probably get it around minus 138 or so, I think is basically where it was. I'm going to play on Houston here. Houston up from minus 105 to minus 142. Now, they look like a very anti-public home favorite, which is why I like this. 87% of tickets, only 83% of the cash on San Diego. So the public heavy on San Diego. San Diego, neither team played yesterday. San Diego's traveling to Houston. But here's the thing about San Diego. Their record is way better than Houston, so it's like, who's going to lay a favorite price, especially when you have no idea who these starters are? Ryan Gusto? Why would you do that when Houston's 8-10, Padres are 15-4? Well, you can see it right here. The Padres are 3-3 on the road. So they've done most of their damage at home, and a lot of it was against like a Braves team that was really struggling to start the season. They swept the Rockies, who are a terrible team. Padres are 12-1 at home, and they're only 3-3 on the road. So they've been significantly worse on the road. Definitely fadeable on the road. And then you look at what they have going on here with their pitching. Kyle Hart, I mean, who the fuck is this guy? Yeah, I know his whip is good at 1.11. He's coming off a nice 6-inning performance, 1-hit shutout against Colorado. But that's Colorado, man. It wasn't at Coors Field. Colorado's offense is terrible away from Coors Field. The previous start, he went 2/3 of an inning and got wrecked by the Cubs, giving up 5 earned runs, 4 walks, no strikeouts, 2 hits. I don't think this guy is any good, man. He's 32 years old, and he's only made 6 career Major League starts, and prior to this year, his only other starts were in that weird COVID season for my Red Sox in 2020. His numbers were terrible that year, too. He walked like one guy an inning almost that year and gave up more than 2 hits per inning that year. It's absolutely insane. His whip was 3 that year. So Hart, there's no way that he has the edge here. Ryan Gusto is at least a younger kind of a prospect here, and he's pitching okay to start the season. 3 ERA, 1 whip. Hasn't gone deep into these games yet, but he's starting to trend towards giving him a little bit of a longer leash there. He had almost a full start, going 4 innings in his last start. 6-1 strikeout walk ratio, 15-3 over the course of the season so far, and only 9 hits allowed in 12 innings. So he's actually pitching decent to start the season. So even though Houston might have to go to their bullpen a little bit here, and Houston's bullpen is probably a little bit worse, but San Diego, I don't even have to bring it up. San Diego's never seen gusto before, so we're going to go for the gusto here. A young pitcher with better stuff and a very misleading number here with teams with misleading-looking records. Go with the Houston Astros there. Then we do have Gore against Dollander in Washington, Colorado. That's like one of the only situations where I would look to an under in Coors Field. I'm basically never going to play an under in Coors Field, but we do see the total dropping from 9 juice to the over to 8.5 juice to the over. 75% of tickets, only 51% of the cash coming in on the over. I'm not going to risk it and play an under in Coors Field, but Mackenzie Gore is off to a really good start this season, and Dollander looks like he's like Colorado's top pitching prospect, and he's done okay so far this season. So it looks like a pitching duel, so I won't do that. And then San Francisco is returning to the West Coast. Kind of a difficult travel spot for San Francisco as they played yesterday on the East Coast on the road. So this is a third straight road series, and they're traveling cross country. Very difficult spot for San Francisco. The Angels are returning home from a road trip that only took them to Texas. Or sorry, it took them to the East Coast as well. Excuse me. So they've been on the road for a long time too. Excuse me. So both teams are actually in pretty horrible travel spots actually. And both teams actually played yesterday too, which is even crazier. So potentially an over might be the way to look here, but Logan Webb's a good pitcher, and Tyler Anderson somehow is pitching well so far this season, so I don't know if I want to risk it on an over in that one, although it looks like you could have some tired bullpens there. Money coming in on the under, though, 60% of the tickets, 99% of cash on the under, and I don't want to fade Logan Webb either, so that's going to do it for me, man. I mean, he's basically San Francisco's ace. Tower Gang Tone on Twitter, patreon.com/Tower Gang.